Good evening, everybody. My name is Wes McCain, and I'm here for the second annual Wisconsin Podcast Association Awards. This is the 2020 version, which is why we're here in my living room. Just kidding, I'm not in my living room. Obviously, I don't have anything like this. We're in the No Studios in Milwaukee, where you could be doing your podcast. Now, you might be asking yourself, you're in charge of hosting this. Why would you dress like a scrub? I want to thank Allison Phillips, who runs the Wisconsin Podcast Association, who sent me a text exactly 4 hours ago and said, hey, we got to do this video thing. Okay, no problem. I'm thinking, don't forget to watch tonight, and I could do it all zippy, flashy, and all that kind of stuff. No, here I am hosting it, wearing a baseball hat and a hoodie. But why would we do things any other way, right? We're going to have fun with it. Hopefully you won in the categories you're nominated for. So without further ado, let's move on with the 2020 Wisconsin Podcast Association Awards.
The nominees for Best Comedy Podcast: The Blake and Sal Show, Charlie Barron's, Off the Rails, Sweats and Suits, and The Shit That Happens to Me.
Our first category for tonight, I think, should be last because comedy is what podcasting should be about, but I'm also a really hilarious person. The Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award for the Best Comedy Podcast goes to a gentleman that sounds like everybody I grew up with, all my family members, because I grew up in northern Minnesota, Charlie Burns. And here's our winner's acceptance speech.
Hey there, how you doing? It's me, Charlie, host of the Manitowoc Minute and the Cripescast podcast, okay? And I just want to thank the Wisconsin Podcast Association for naming me the best comedy. I mean, jeepers cripes, thanks to gosh, okay? But, you know, in all honesty, I could not have done this alone, okay? I absolutely could not have. And I'd like to thank one mentor in particular. You know, this is a guy, I've had some tough times, and this is a guy who helped me through them, okay? I remember one time in particular, I was feeling real low. And he just says to me, he says, out of the blue, you know, well, I walked past him and he just said, you know, in every life, we have some trouble. But when you worry, you make it double. And then he just says, don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy now. And then, woo! And that was Billy Bass, and I'll never forget it. Okay, so honest to Pete, thank you, Billy Bass, for pulling me through. Big Mouth Billy Bass, I should say his full name. And, you know, if any of you just want to borrow that advice, it's there for the taking. So keep her moving, and watch out for deer, okay? They're running around all willy-nilly rutting and whatnot, okay? Okay, and tell your folks I says hi. Okay, bye-bye.
The nominees for the Best Sports Podcast: All Sports Now, Inspire Greatness with Ian Bennett, Man Cave Football with Dan Casper, Wicked on Wisconsin, and 132 Breeze.
And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award for Best Sports Podcast, All Sports Now. And here's our winner.
Hello, my name is Corey Sparks, and I am the main host for the All Sports Now podcast. I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone responsible for us winning such an amazing award, that being the award in the Best Sports Podcast category. First, thank you so much to my friends and family, my family being my parents, my brother, and extended family, for sharing the podcast on Facebook. Without you, I don't think the word gets out nearly as much. I also want to thank Anime Del Rio, my girlfriend, for always encouraging me and always telling me that the sky is the limit and that there is no limit in general when I put my mind to something. Without you, this podcast does not take off as much as it does. I want to thank your wonderful father for giving me this snowball mic and telling me, hey, I think you're really talented and I'd love to see you start a podcast with this and see where it goes. Thank you so much. I want to thank my journalism instructor in high school, Jane Ryder. Thank you for introducing me to the world of podcasting, and thank you for showing me what it means to be a good, humble, hardworking journalist. Without you, this is not possible. Finally, thank you to Ryan Patton, my editor. Without you, this podcast in general does not come out in as good of a quality as it does on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So thank you all so much for being responsible for this. Without all of you, this would not be possible. So thank you very much.
What's up, guys? My name is Ryan Patton. I am the All Sports Now podcast editor. I just wanted to pop in and say a quick thank you to all of our fans, aka the Fanatics, for voting for us in this competition. I want to thank all of my friends. You guys know who you guys are. for just inspiring me every day to chase my dreams, whether it be this podcast or TV, movies, just whatever creative field I want. I want to thank you guys for inspiring me every day to continue to do it. And finally, I want to thank Corey Sparks, our main host for this podcast, for not only inspiring me to start my own podcast, but allowing me to help you out as well. I think you are an immensely talented person, and I want to do whatever I can to help you. So again, thank you to everyone for this award, and yeah, I'm just so at loss for words for this. So again, just thank you.
The nominees for Best Crime Podcast: Cool and Unusual Punishment, Locations Unknown, Unsolved True Wisconsin Crime, and Wine and Crime.
And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award for a podcast I never want to be spoken about on the crime podcast category, Unsolved True Wisconsin Crime. If this were 2019, I would totally creep you out. 2020, you're thinking, hey, he's being safe. And here's our winner.
Thank you so much for this great honor. I wish we could be there to celebrate in person. I'd like to thank Edge. I'd like to thank all of my listeners and supporters and everyone who came to our live event. I'd like to thank all of my editors here at the Journal Sentinel for supporting this project, as well as my audio engineer, Bill Schultz, who put in countless hours of work, as well as dealing with me, which is not always the easiest thing to do. I'd also like to thank everyone who agreed to be interviewed for the project, and that includes police officers, loved ones of the victim, and even some of the suspects. I'm really hoping this pandemic ends soon and we'll be able to launch season 4 in 2021. Thank you so much again, and keep listening to Unsolved.
The nominees for Best Kids and Family Podcast: At Home with the Mitchells, Check Out My Dad Pod, Pei the Podcaster, and The Story Tree.
The winner for the Podcast Choice Award for Kids and Family, and a friend of mine, Mike Wickett, with Check Out My Dad Pod. And here's our winner for Kids and Family. Something I'm an expert in because I have a lot of kids and a lot of ex-wives. Here's our winner.
Hey, it is so cool to win Best Family and Kids Podcast here at the Wisconsin Podcast Awards. This is one of the... I never expected the podcast, Check Out My Dad Pod, to take off and do so well. When I started it, my wife and I had made the decision where I was going to stay home and be a stay-at-home dad. And you know what? It has been a blast. I've had a lot of stories to tell, and I thought, why not put it all in a podcast? And then the best part, too, is the stories that, if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard. I get a chance to talk to dads from all walks of life. I talked to a dad who is a respiratory therapist in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, or a couple of the guys that I've had on are black fathers with black children trying to raise it in America here in 2020 during the George Floyd protests and the Black Lives Matter movement. So between those guys and just hearing from all different kinds of dads about what it's like for them to be fathers, that's one of the coolest things about doing this podcast, because I think that there's still a stigma for dads, potentially still a stigma out there for stay-at-home dads like myself, and there shouldn't be, because dads, you do matter, and this podcast is all about you. As one of my guests once said, Brady Goodman, he said, it's a celebration of fatherhood, and that's kind of what it is, a chance for dads to talk about life being, in that role. So for this podcast to win Best Family and Kids Podcast is very, very cool. I appreciate everyone who voted. Thanks to the Wisconsin Podcast Association. Thanks to my wife for kicking me in the tail and telling me to do this podcast and getting hooked up as well. And Allison with Edge and the WPA, kick cancer's ass. We are all behind you. Thank you guys so much for the award. I really do appreciate it.
The nominees for the Best Sci-Fi Podcast: Insane Asylum, Better in 3D,
And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Award for Sci-Fi Podcast category is Insane Asylum. And here's our winner.
We are the Insane Asylum. I'm Joe. That's Mark.
And I'm Mark.
And we would like to thank the WPA for hosting this event, all our friends, family that have watched and supported us and voted for us for this award. 2020 has been a strange event, strange year for us and strange year for everybody. So hopefully next year will be better. We get out and do more investigations. We also like to give a special thanks to Off the Rails, Tom and Molly for all the help.
And another special thanks to Allison Phillips and to Katie Beth for all the hard work that they put in to put all this together and get the WPA off the ground for all of us that are out here trying to make a difference in the world by doing some podcasting, giving some entertainment to people, and just doing our thing.
Yeah, got to give them props. Special, they put all this together last year. This year's the second one. And hopefully next year will be better and live again. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Keep watching.
Thanks for voting for us.
And thanks for voting for us.
The nominees for the Best Business Podcast: Door County Pulse, Milwaukee Business Journal, Positive Polarity, Real Estate in the 608, and Women Who Open Doors.
And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award for Business Podcast category is Women Who Open Doors. Hey, Katie? Am I supposed to say, here's your winner, like now? Is that what I'm supposed to say? Anyone? Okay. Here's your winner.
Thanks to the Wisconsin Podcast Association and to everyone that voted for me. I really appreciate it. In fact, I'm probably still a little stunned that I'm a podcaster. But what started out as a crazy brainchild idea between myself and Allison Phillips of Edge Media has become an event that I look forward to every week. You see, I learn so much from these remarkable people. Women Who Open Doors has featured women leaders, executives, women who have started their own businesses. But what's more important is not what they do, but how and why they want to impact the community and their employees and the people around them. I'm so grateful for all of my guests and the time that they have given me, but they've also had an opportunity to do a shout out to those mentors and people that impacted their lives as well, both men and women. Thanks also to my podcast squad. My husband, Mark, who now says I have a podcast voice around the house. My daughter, Ellie, and her friend, Hannah, who actively promote and market my podcast for me, as well as my mom and dad, Frank and Kathy, who now listen to podcasts and have just taught me the gift of giving back to other people. Coming up in this continued season, we'll have both men and women sharing their stories, so please join in wherever you subscribe to your podcasts. And thanks again.
The nominees for the Best Food category: Dude Foods, Food Crushin', The Friday Fish Fry, and Wisconsin Foodie.
And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award for Best Food category, Wisconsin Foodie. Congratulations. And here's the winner of the food category. I mean, even wore the shirt and everything thinking we were going to win, but we didn't. They broke our trophy last year. We won it last year. Here's the winner. But we accept this on behalf of Wisconsin Foodie. Congratulations. You guys have a great podcast. I love it myself. And who cares what Nikki Lasagna, my partner on Dude Foods, thinks.
The nominees for Best Entertainment Podcast: Eric Cast, GGMM Go Getters Media, Hayes and Jason, The Ron Purdy Show, Women Crushing It Wednesday.
The winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award for the Entertainment Podcast category is Women Crushing It Wednesday. Mom, I'm doing this awards thing. You gotta stop calling me. So awkward. And here's our winner. Mom.
Thank you so much to the Wisconsin Podcast Association for this award for Women Crushing It Wednesday in the entertainment category. I appreciate it a ton. This award, of course, belongs to all of the awesome ladies that I've had on the podcast. It's great to win in entertainment, but I really hope that this is a podcast that you listen to and you learn something when it comes to social issues and racial issues and gender issues and all of that, everything in between. Thank you to all of the amazing ladies who have been a part of it, including local business owners here in Milwaukee, to my iHeartMedia ladies that I'm so lucky to work with, and to all of the talented and hardworking women in country music that have been a part of it too. Appreciate you a ton. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be a part of it. Thank you to my parents for never kicking me out with my radio career dreams. And thank you to iHeartRadio for supporting the podcast. And of course to my iHeartMedia Milwaukee family.
The nominees for the Best Society and Culture Podcast: BS Free Witchcraft, Candid Athletic Training, Lead Balloon, The Pridecast, Rigs Off the Radio.
And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award for Society and Culture Podcast, the second best guy I know on radio behind myself, Rigs Off the Radio. Congratulations, Riggs. It's the only award you've ever won without me. Just kidding. And now, we go to our winner for the acceptance speech.
Wow, this is really cool and unexpected. Thank you to the Wisconsin Podcasters Association. Thank you to anybody who's been a guest on my podcast. I will continue my mission to break the stigma around mental health, especially men's mental health, and I would like to dedicate this award to Allison Phillips. Thank you again.
The nominees for the Best New Podcast category: Athletes Doing Good, Check Out My Dad Pod, Live For, Wicket on Wisconsin, and 132 Breeze.
And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award for New Podcast category, again, my friend, the legend himself, Mike Wicket with Check Out My Dad Pod. I need a beer, and it's hot as hell in here. Sweating in one armpit. It's the worst. I don't know why they asked me to do this and don't pay me. Is that thing on? Here's our winner.
Oh my, to win 2 Wisconsin Podcast Association awards. Very, very cool to win Best New Podcast for this one. Check out My Dad Pod. It's an honor. I spoke earlier about what the podcast means. A celebration of fatherhood, dads talking about being dads, all that kind of stuff, and me being able to share my story. I think the reason I created it and why it's kind of a hit being a new podcast is podcasting is a chance to tell stories, and it's a story that you don't hear very much. Everybody who is nominated tonight and in this category has a new cool story to tell, and that was the point of this one. It was a new angle, a new story, a new thing that people aren't really talking about, and that is dads, particularly me as a stay-at-home dad, which is a rarity, but it's very, very cool to be honored. It's one of those podcasts that I'll never be able to win again. You don't win Best New Podcast twice, so thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I never thought I would be doing something like this in a podcast form after having spent so many years in radio, but it's been very, very cool. So thanks to my wife, again, for kicking me in the tail and telling me to do this podcast, also to my wife, Lee, for carrying all 3 babies. Thanks to the Wisconsin Podcast Association and Edge. And Allison, kick cancer's ass, all right? We are all behind you. Thank you once again for this awesome, awesome honor.
The nominees for the favorite podcast of the year: Black Like Me, Candid Athletic Training, Door County Pulse, Real Estate in the 608, The Story Tree.
And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award for Favorite Podcast of the Year goes to Black Like Me. Pretty much had my fill of this for the night. It's gonna be a lot cheaper for you guys this year because you don't have to pay for an Uber for me drinking all night. So here's our final winner. This is where I'm walking down the stairs to leave.
Hello, Wisconsin Podcast Association. I'm Alexander G., and I'm the proud podcast host of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. I want to thank you so much for this wonderful recognition. I really do consider it an honor. We have about 100 episodes up right now because about 2 years ago I said I want some place to take my voice as a black man, a black Wisconsinite, lifelong Madisonian basically, navigating my world of predominant whiteness. I don't know where I would have taken my voice, my concerns, my thoughts during this pandemic if I didn't have the platform of Black Like Me. Thank you so much for honoring that voice and the space that I've been giving to communicate my highs and my lows, my celebrations and my disappointments. But I believe that it has helped my mental, emotional, and physical health to have an outlet such as my podcast. So I want to thank you sincerely for recognizing my work, for honoring my listening audience, and also honoring the great team of men and women who helped me create this podcast. This recognition means a lot to me, and I'm going to broadcast this all over the place. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to all of our winners tonight. Awesome. Keep being creative. It's the future of audio in my book, podcasting. So keep them coming. If you ever want more information or you know friends that want to do podcasts, wisconsinpodcast.com. You can always find us on Facebook at Wisconsin Podcast Association, Instagram, Wisconsin Podcast Association, Twitter, Wisconsin Podcast Association. You can find us on Tinder. You just have to swipe left and we'll be right there under Wisconsin Podcast Association. Not on Bumble anymore. We had some creepy situations with that. But I want to thank you all again for participating tonight. Don't forget to join us in 2021. Hopefully we can do it in person and drink beers together and laugh and cry and enjoy one another's podcast, talk about how great we all are, and pat each other on the back for our amazing year of podcasting in 2021. So again, thank you all for being here for the 2020 Wisconsin Podcast Association, the second annual. And again, thank you to Allison Phillips that did all the hard work and reminded me at least 20 minutes before I got here that I needed to dress up for this tonight. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, KOSS, also Puppy World, Harborough Candies, the gummy bears, Famous Footwear, Mac Tools, Cupid's Toys on 76th in Franklin. They sell dirty toys. We have any other sponsors I missed? Al, hello, you guys? Just KOSS. Just kidding. All those other ones are fake. Thank you, KOSS. I love your headphones. I use them all the time on airplanes. Talk to me like lovers do. Tyler, does this work? Hello, can you hear it all right if I go? The winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice, the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award. What do I?
That's very wordy.
The Crime Podcast category. And the winner for the Wisconsin Motherfucker, why can I not say that? Wisconsin Podcast Choice Award. Insane Asylum. And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast Award for Best Food category. category. This guy in radio that I know right behind myself. Riggs on the radio. Oops. Riggs on the radio. Oops, my bad. Podcast of choice. Podcasta. And the winner for the Wisconsin Podcast of choice. I did it again. Podcasta. It's like pasta. Ooh, I think if you did one of an Italian podcast. Podcasta. At least 20 minutes to notificate. At least 20. I need a beer and it's hot as hell in here. Is that thing on? Hey. Oh, I'm an expert in this category. Here's our winner. And if you mess with Wisconsin Podcast Association, I will show you my Tanya Tucker and my Conway Twitty. Tanya Tucker, Conway Twitty. Coming for you, Rodney.
And we'd like to, as a group, congratulate you, the winner. Anything to add, Allison? Make sure you talk right into my microphone now.
Oh my God, get off of me.
Well, they can't hear you if you're not talking in the microphone.
And the winner is?
No, you're supposed to say.
No, I want to say. Oh, and here's the winner.
Wait, they couldn't hear you.
Here's the winner.
Perfect.
I like the thought.